Is that it? Did we do it? Yep. We did it. Okay. That's, we did it. Let's, first things first. The bottom center of the screen says that we have beaten 56 games in 2024 and 503 since we started doing this in 2020. Those numbers are now outdated. We've now beaten 57 games in 2024 and 504 since we started doing this in 2020. Let's go. Okay, let's talk about the ups and downs of Life is Strange. I have a lot, and now here's why I'm struggling. I feel like a lot of what I thought about this game got negated in the last 15 minutes. So I feel like I need to totally reassess how I feel about this game. So this game has been a journey. This game has been a bit of a roller coaster ride. It started out okay, all a bit slow, and I wasn't sure how I felt about the mechanics. And then it got worse. I was starting to think maybe it was bad. I didn't think the writing was that good. I thought that the characters' decisions were unbelievable. They weren't believable. I didn't like that they missed some opportunities to have some really cool moments, it seemed like. And then toward the end of chapter 3, so around the halfway mark, it really started to get really good. And it got better and better until it was great. And then right at the end, it lost me again. In the last hour and a half, it lost me again. And I started thinking that the decisions that the characters were making were so dumb and they didn't make any sense and nothing made any sense. And it was the ending is, I won't spoil it, but it's very 2001 Space Odyssey, what the hell is going on? Very almost Silent Hill. It's weird. It's weird and it's very abstract and yada yada. And then the last 10 minutes were really, really fucking good. And then that got me kind of thinking, maybe I don't know, like, does the end justify the means when it comes to that? If it really sticks the landing, I think that's the best thing about this game. It really stuck the landing. The very end was really good, and it kind of made all of the roller coaster ride up to that point feel justified a little bit. So I guess let's zoom out a little bit. The voice acting is incredible. I like the art style. It's not like photorealistic. It's like its own thing. I like that. That's cool. So this is a choose your own adventure type game, like The Wolf Among Us, the Telltale games, the Dark Pictures games, Detroit Become Human, those kinds of games. It's one of those, except it has a mechanic that will let you do redos, right? So that is a really interesting addition to a game like this, because there have been so many times I've played those games where I made a decision and then I was like, ooh, like almost immediately sometimes. Ooh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Or, oh yeah, that's right. Somebody said I shouldn't have done that earlier. I should have remembered. In this game, not every time, but very often, you just have the opportunity to just say, well, I'm just going to do that again. And without having to like reload from a checkpoint, you know? And so that's a really cool idea. And to be able to build it into the plot where it's not like, hey, do you want to try that again? Page, screen, you know? It's not like that. It's built into the premise of the game. That's really clever and very smart. I really liked that. I think the characters in this game are some of the better characters I have come across in games. There are a couple of exceptions, but I think the main characters especially, and a lot of the fringe characters are excellently voiced, excellently acted, well animated, well written. There are some issues with the writing in some places, but most of it is pretty good. The characters they're not always believable. They're like horror movie characters. You know, when you watch a horror movie and you just yell at the screen like, God damn it, why are these people so stupid? What are you doing? It's like that. But the thing is, if you didn't find the characters to be believable at all, you wouldn't be yelling that because you wouldn't care, right? The characters are believable enough to get invested. And then when they do something stupid, it really pisses you off. There is so much of that in this game where the character's like, I don't like any of these options. If it's my character, I don't like any of these options. These are all dumb decisions. Or if it's somebody else, I'm like, why would you do that? You know? So that's not really a critique, though. That's I mean, some of the best horror movies are like that, where the characters are all make horrible decisions over and over. And in this game, people make horrible decisions over and over, and it's frustrating. But maybe it's intended that way. Maybe it's intended to be frustrating, right? And I believe that might be the case now. I'm going to have to do some editing as soon as this is done, but we'll get around it. The thing that really drove this game home for me is that it reminds me of Donnie Darko. It's so clear to me that this game is inspired by Donnie Darko. If it's not, if somebody said it's not, I wouldn't believe them. It's all of the, again, I don't want to spoil it because this is supposed to be a spoiler-free part, but like, if you've watched Donnie Darko and then you play this game, the parallels are undeniable. The way it starts, the beginning, middle, end, all of it. It's very Donnie Darko. And Donnie Darko is one of my favorite movies of all time. That was one of those movies that I watched 20 times and read all the lore on and memorized. I'll finish that in a second. Okay, we'll go ahead and we won't. I'll just blur that out. It's undeniable that this game is very and Donnie Darko was one of those movies that I watched 20-25 times. I'd watch over and over, and I would read lore about on the internet and read theories, and I had my own theories about that game or about that movie that I don't even think I got from any. Like, some of them I did, but some of them I didn't. That I had my own ideas about. That's one of those movies you can kind of do that. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a perfect movie, but it's one of those movies that it's got all of the question marks are in all the right place that you can kind of fill in the gaps in a number of different ways and come up with your own explanation for what the movie is really about. Some people took it in like a Christian direction where he's like a Jesus figure. And then some people take it in a whole different kind of Schrodinger's box, kind of a scientific direction. And there's all these different ways that you can look at that movie. That kind of appears to be the case here too. And I love that shit. I do think I don't think the game's perfect. And so let's talk about some of the problems. I think some of the writing is bad. Bad's not maybe quite the right word, but I think some of the writing misses some very easy opportunities. For instance, early on in the game, when the catalyst has already happened and you start realizing what this game is really about, there are some ways that you think, man, that's a really cool idea. Let's play that out in the universe and let's see where that goes. And it seems like it's going to that direction. And then it ends up being like, it's just not very satisfying. If I were in this position of this main character, I could set up and execute some set pieces or like a scene or like reveal these things to these people in a way that would be extremely satisfying. And they just didn't do it, and it's frustrating. And I don't think it's deliberate, because there are a couple of scenes that could have some real payoff, and they're just clunky, and they don't really make a lot of sense, and they're not believable. And the way the writing is done it's like sometimes when you play these choose your own adventure games, you can tell that some of the lines aren't designed to take every possibility into account, so the tone doesn't match the context of the scene. There were several times that it felt like that I felt like I was getting text that was really intended for another choice that I didn't make. You know, it's a very difficult process, I'm sure, to make a game like this where you have to make, even there's branching narratives or whatever, but this game, I can tell, didn't have that much of a branching thing. It's not really about that. They're like in the Dark Pictures games, in Detroit Become Human, in some of those other games, there are whole scenes that just wouldn't have happened if you play it a certain way, right? The whole end of the game looks totally different because at that point you're off on some branch where you could be way over here, but instead you're over here. And so none of what you're seeing is the same, right? By the end of the game, it's like can be totally different what's going on. This game is going to end in the same place, I'm pretty sure, no matter what. And so because of that, the whole choose your own adventure thing is a little bit of a different flavor, and it's not as empowering, right? It's most of the decisions that I made, you can take them back. So there's not, the stakes are lower, right? But that's baked into the premise. There's not much they can do about that. But even beyond that, the fact that they didn't build it like a real branching narrative and it was clearly designed to get to a certain endpoint no matter what, it turned and it felt that way from the beginning, that it didn't really feel like my decisions were really affecting what was going to happen scene to scene. There's some lines of dialogue here and there, but it goes down the same path. I bet, I'm speculating, but I bet this game pretty much plays mostly the same way no matter what decisions you make. And that's not ideal, right? And then again, on top of that, some of the lines, even though this game has an easier job since it is more on rails than some of those other games, there still felt like some of the lines of dialogue didn't really match what was going on because they didn't do a perfect job of mapping every response to make sense in every possible context that it would be taken in. Does that make sense? So I think there are games like Dark Pictures is a great example of a game that does that very well. It's not perfect, but they do it very well, where things make sense within the context, no matter what you choose. If you get a piece of dialogue that's going to be in every reality, there's a lot of those in those kinds of games, it makes sense in every one. That's a hard task, but they do a pretty good job of it. This game didn't do a great job of that all the time. There was some things that was like, that sounds like something he would have said if I had done the other thing that I ended up not doing. You know, there was some of that. There was a bug that happened once that I had to reload from checkpoint and not realizing that the checkpoint was the very beginning of a scene. I only ended up really losing about 10 minutes because of that, but that was a little bit of a bummer. That was the only time I really saw a bug in this game, but it did happen, and it was a weird bug too. It wasn't like the game froze. It was just like everything went really dark, like the lighting was messed up or something. So that was a little bit of a problem, but that's not that big of a deal. Other critiques. I think this game got a little too into itself toward the end. It got, without spoiling anything, it gets so abstract that I think some of the end of this game could have been cut out and it would have been fine. I like movies like 2001 Space Odyssey just fine. And if you're going to be inspired by something like Donnie Darko, which it seems to me that this is, there's some of that in that game too, or in that movie too, right? But there were a couple of prolonged areas that were like that, and it got a little old. But overall, this answer has changed 5 times since I started playing this day before yesterday or whenever it was. Overall, I love this game. I think I love it. I think I love this game, like enough that I want to read about it after I'm done. I want to see what the other ending would have looked like. I want to know what the theories are about what some of the symbolism in this game means, and what it's really about. I think I love this game. I think I loved it. I'm still not 100% sure as I'm saying that, because there were so many times in this game that I was frustrated. Oh, also it's a little slow at times. there are certain things with the redo mechanic that it gets a little. It seems like it'd be easily fixed. It just some of that stuff could have been a lot snappier. You could get through it faster because there's a lot of times I'm sitting through a scene that I can't skip, and it's like I've already seen it, and sometimes you can skip it, but a lot of times you couldn't, and it didn't seem like it was evident why. Sometimes some of that could have been a lot snappier. Going back and forth could have been faster. Maybe that's a loading thing. I don't know, but it just didn't seem very snappy. But again, overall, I think I love this game. I think I love it, which I don't know what that means as far as the ranking. I think maybe it means I'm going to have to consider this as one of my favorite of these kinds of games. Like I just played, like the Dark Pictures ones have always been my favorite because I love horror and the idea that you can lose the characters and stuff like that. That's tough to beat. But like when I think about a game like The Wolf Among Us, which I just played and it ranked very high, I'm pretty sure I liked this more. And now I'm really excited to play the other games, and I'm going to play one every month until the new one comes out in October. So I've got July, August, and September, so there's 3 more games. So I'm definitely going to look forward to playing. But I think I loved it. I think I loved this game. At the end, finally, when it stuck the landing so well. It stuck the landing so well. And I don't know. I can't even really explain it. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it reminded me so much of Donnie Darko. And if I hated Donnie Darko, I might hate this game. You know? Like, it's not even up to the game whether it's good or not. It's just what it reminds me of. And you know, I keep saying it's inspired by Donnie Darko. I don't actually know that. It just seems like there are so many parallels that are so obvious to me that I can't imagine that it's not at least a little inspired. Not a little, a lot inspired by Donnie Darko. All right, I'll shut up. It was great. I loved the game. I really loved looking back on it all now from this perspective of having finished it. I love what I'm looking back on. So, all right, that's it. Last order of business. Life is Strange. It has been a blast, but we are now going to delete you from our console and never play you again. Bye. Thank you. Appreciate you.